Have you ever had that sickening feeling that you're being watched? Not the casual glance of a stranger in passing, but an invisible gaze fixed upon you, following every move you make, even in the comfort of your own home. I used to dismiss stories like that as paranoia until it happened to me, until he appeared at my window. 2 years ago, I moved into a modest house in the quiet suburbs, away from the city noise, crowded apartments and loud neighbours. It was the kind of place people move to for peace and safety, a neighbourhood where the loudest noises come from the distant lawnmowers or occasional barking dogs. I lived alone, and honestly, I enjoyed the solitude. I worked a steady job, enjoyed my privacy, and kept mostly to myself. Life was comfortably predictable, until that changed abruptly one cold Thursday night. I was sitting in bed, reading, when a faint scratching noise drifted through the quiet room. Initially, it was easy to ignore. Houses creak, wind blows, normal sounds, but this scratching seemed more deliberate, rhythmic, like fingernails against glass. I got up and curiously approached it, pulling back the blinds. Nothing there, just darkness. Shrugging it off, I tried to convince myself it was my imagination. The following day, unease lingered. I checked outside my window. There were no branches, no bushes close enough to scrape against the glass. Still, I dismissed it as paranoia and went about my routine. Several uneventful days passed, and just as I started feeling at ease again, something unsettling happened. Returning home late from a friend's house, my headlights caught a figure standing motionless under the street lamp directly across from my home. They wore a hooded sweatshirt, face obscured by shadow, body eerily still. My heart raced as I slowly drove past. The figure turned, deliberately hiding its face, then quickly walked away into the darkness. Anxiety tightened my chest. Who was that? Why were they standing outside my house at night? Inside, I triple-checked the locks. I couldn't shake the feeling of dread. The next evening, cooking dinner in my kitchen, I glanced towards the street lamp again. My stomach twisted. He was back, standing motionless, staring directly at my window. My skin prickled with cold sweat as I quickly closed the blinds. Each night afterwards, he appeared closer, sometimes at the sidewalk, sometimes near my driveway. Every encounter intensified my anxiety. Sleep became elusive, every noise amplified, every shadow suspicious. One night, around 1 a.m, I awoke suddenly, my pulse hammering, unsure why. My room felt wrong somehow. Then came that scratching again, louder, more persistent this time. Heart pounding, I jumped out of bed and threw open the blinds. There he stood, face pressed disturbingly close to my window, features still hidden by shadows. I jumped back, terrified, knocking over a lamp as I scrambled away. By the time I dared look again, he was gone. That encounter shook me deeply. I installed security cameras, motion sensor lights, anything to feel safe again. For several nights, nothing happened, and I foolishly started to hope it was over. It wasn't. One rainy night, my doorbell rang suddenly, around midnight. Peering anxiously through my peephole, I saw no one, only shadows dancing beneath my porch light. As I stepped back, breathing unevenly, my back window's motion sensor suddenly triggered. Floodlights blazed in my backyard, illuminating the shape of someone vanishing quickly behind the shed. I froze, stomach sinking in horror. Desperately, I called the police. They found muddy footprints leading from the back fence to my bedroom window, confirming someone was indeed stalking my house. Their investigation yielded nothing else, just advice to be careful and call again if needed. Days passed with crippling anxiety. Then one night, at 6 a.m, I woke abruptly, drenched in sweat. My heart raced uncontrollably. A dreadful intuition overwhelmed me. I sat up, straining to listen, my breath shallow. Then, I heard it clearly. Slow, methodical footsteps inside my house, softly padding along the wooden hallway floor. My blood turned to ice. I silently reached for my phone, fingers trembling violently, dialing emergency service as quietly as possible. Whispering desperately into the phone, I begged them to hurry. The footsteps drew closer, stopping directly outside my bedroom door. Silence stretched painfully. Then, slowly, the doorknob began turning. Paralyzed, I stared helplessly as the door opened inch by inch, creaking softly. A shadowed figure stood in the doorway, hood drawn, dark clothes soaked with rain, breathing heavily. Who are you?" I stammered, voice shaking. He tilted his head slowly, still obscured by shadows. "You left your window unlocked," he said quietly, voice hoarse, chilling calmly. "I told you before, be more careful." His words froze me with confusion and fear. Told me before? Who was this person? He stepped closer, faint moonlight finally illuminating his face. My stomach churned with shock. He wasn't some stranger. He was familiar, horribly familiar. I'd seen him multiple times before, at my workplace, at the grocery store, even at the coffee shop I regularly visited. He had always blended effortlessly into the background, but now he stood clearly, unmistakably in front of me. "Why?" I whispered, tears welling. He smiled coldly. "Because you never noticed me. Now you'll never forget." Headlights suddenly swept through my bedroom window. Blue flashing lights followed. Police had arrived. The intruder swiftly bolted down the hall. Officers burst through my front door seconds later, quickly securing the house. They found no sign of him. He had escaped through the back door, vanishing again into the night. Police increased their patrols, but they never caught him. I stayed with friends for weeks, terrified to return home alone. Eventually, I moved away entirely, unable to shake the trauma. Though physically unharmed, the damage he did was permanent. He stripped away my peace, my sense of security. The man who had stalked me relentlessly now haunted every moment, every shadowy corner of my life. Even in a new home, miles away, sometimes I wake up suddenly at night, heart racing, certain I hear scratching at my window again. I stare through blinds, seeing only empty darkness, but deep down, I know somewhere, somehow, he might still be out there, waiting, watching.